Why did the Egyptians turn their dead into mummies, and inter their pharaohs in large tombs? How did famous movie figures like the Scorpion King and Imhotep carve their names in history? Today we are going to learn about 10 interesting facts about ancient Egyptian mummies. 10. The birth of the Sahara Desert. 8,000 years ago, the Sahara was fertile and green. Farmers produced grains and millets in peace until, little did they know, gravitational influences from the solar system changed the Earth's tilt by 1 degree, causing a flood of sunlight to permanently hit the Sahara. Immediately, it's anything but a searing desert, growing, leaving dead crops afterward, pursuing the ranchers to the oases where they became abandoned like wrecked survivors. Many looked for shelter in the Nile, a versatile waterway that the Sahara couldn't endless supply of its standard flooding. For the survivors of the Sahara, the Nile was no paradise. High floods devastated their settlements. But soon the Egyptians were able to predict the flooding by watching the star Sirius's path through the night sky. At the point when the rising waters retreated, the land left behind was fruitful because of residue in the water. Coordinating their lives around the flooding of the Nile, the antiquated Egyptians separated their year into 3 seasons: the immersion, the development, and the collect. 9. The Scorpion King. The ancient Egyptians set up 2 main kingdoms around 3400 BC, the Lower Kingdom at the northern mouth of the Nile, called as Lower because the Nile flows down from the south, and the Upper Kingdom in the southern desert lands. During this time, a lord from the Upper Kingdom emerged whose name was referred to just as Scorpion. He attacked and vanquished his expect to join every one of the grounds of Old Egypt. Individuals fostered a rough type of putting down, and it was utilized to account the Scorpion King's adventures. This type of composing would before long develop into what we know today as pictographs, the composed language of Old Egypt. Nonetheless, the Scorpion King passed on before he could achieve his objective. The 2 kingdoms remained separate. Facts about the Scorpion King's life are rare archaeological finds. A stone relief that bears his name is possibly the oldest writing in human existence. Archaeologists have found a divided imperial mace head credited to the Scorpion King. Also, they have discovered what many accept to be his burial chamber in Abydos, containing relics recorded with a portion of Egypt's soonest known writing. There may have been more pieces of information inside, however we may never know. Fortune trackers had ravaged the burial place quite a while in the past. 8. The Divine King invents luxury. 100 years after the Scorpion King had fizzled, another succeeded. From the Upper Kingdom city of Hyrcanpolis came a man named Menes. First he vanquished his neighbors, then, at that point he walked on Lower Egypt and joined the 2 grounds, and afterward he walked on savage swarms and extended the boundaries of his new realm. He fixed the unification by wedding a Lower Egyptian princess. Under Menes, the land found a sense of contentment. He established the capital, Memphis, by building a barrier in the Nile and recovering the marshland. He got away from out-of-control dogs by hopping on the rear of a crocodile and riding it to another shore, where he established the city of Crocodilopolis. Menes' kin, their lives liberated from significant concerns, created sports, chiseling, carpentry, and surprisingly figured out how to brew lager. Egypt turned into a place that is known for plushness. The Roman student of history Diodorus Siculus guaranteed that Menes created the idea of extravagance. Following 62 years of success, Menes met a rough end when he was bitten to death by a hippopotamus. 7. Egypt's oldest mystery. If you think stories about Menes may sound a bit like the exaggerated exploits of the most interesting man in the world, historians agree. No one yet has discovered any contemporary evidence of Menes' existence. All of his stories come from later in history, leading some to believe he is a fictionalized folk hero, or that Menes is an honorary title given to many individual rulers. The name meaning of Menes is he who endures. Menes' actual personality is one of the incredible secrets in Egyptian history. The overarching hypothesis is that he was really Narmer, the first recorded ruler of the first dynasty, or his successor Hora-Ha, or both. Hora-Ha might be Menes on the grounds that there are numerous symbolic representations that partner the names of the 2. Regardless, archaeologists have found the tablet of Narmer, a stone help with numerous ambiguous suggestions to Narmer's conceivable way of life as Menes. Most telling is that the front of the palette shows Narmer wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt, while on the back he is wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt. The crown of the pharaohs would proceed to be a blend of these 2 crowns. Numerous Egyptologists accept this infers that Narmer was the unifier of Old Egypt, and accordingly King Menes. 6. Mummies. Before 3500 BC, the Egyptians covered their dead in shallow graves. The dryness of the sand, The warmth of the day and the cold of the evening, and the absence of air in the grave got dried out the body, making it be normally safeguarded. The ancient Egyptians fostered the belief that the spirit would get back to its body after death, yet on the off chance that the spirit couldn't perceive its body in light of rot, the spirit would get lost. They began aiding the natural preservation process by dehydrating bodies with sunlight or fire, and by curing the flesh with smoke. 5. Mastabas. Strict convictions, and the fixation on existence in the wake of death prospered under Hora. The type of tomb he built for himself was called a mastaba, which seems as though the lower level of a pyramid, without different levels stacked on top. Envision a pyramid cut off after the subsequent advance. Be that as it may, bodies not put away in the bone-dry sand were isolated from the regular protection measure. Since the kings actually needed to be covered safely with their assets, this drove the old Egyptians to foster embalmment methods, so their bodies would not spoil away in their lavish burial chambers. 4. The earliest known female ruler. When the first dynasty Queen Merneth's husband died around 2990 BC, her son Den was made king. Den was too young to rule effectively, and so Merneth ruled as queen regent, making her the first female ruler in recorded history. How long Merneth's regime kept going is obscure. K's rule spread over 50 years, and during that time Imhotep extended militarily and monetarily, to such an extent that Dan is respected the best pharaoh of the first dynasty. However, what amount of that can be credited to his mom? It is difficult to know for certain, yet what we can be sure of is that Merneth's burial chamber was just about as extravagant as any ruler, which was not regular of a sovereign mother. Buried with her were 40 workers, forfeited creatures, and surprisingly a sun-powered boat. Such boats were collected inside burial chambers so mummies could utilize them to cruise in the sky with Ra, the Egyptian divine force of the sun. 3. Free women. While old Egyptian wives tended to manage the home, there were no limitations that held ladies back from seeking after an independent way of life. Any lady that picked a vocation would get equivalent compensation for equivalent work. Ladies oversaw ranches or organizations, worked in the fields, or as weavers, babysitters, performers. There were no known marriage ceremonies in ancient Egypt. The wife simply moved into a home with the husband and they were considered married, similar to today's common law relationship. The wife could divorce by moving back into her parents' home, at which point she would be free to remarry. A lady's capacity to conceive an offspring was viewed as more significant than her virginity, so she was able to get married and divorced multiple times, and single individuals were allowed to engage in sexual relations before marriage. Although the sexes were closer to equality in ancient Egypt than they would be in many civilizations to follow, things were not perfect. Women were punished more harshly than men after committing adultery. An adulterous man was forced into a divorce, but the woman was believed to receive punishments as extreme as execution. 2. The Dark Dynasty. Egypt kept on flourishing under the rules of the rulers who followed Merneth. The first dynasty finished when the two possible beneficiaries of King Qa fought for the seat. The subtleties are lost to history, yet what is known is that an outsider mediated and asserted the seat for himself, starting another regal line. Little is known of the second dynasty of Egypt because records of the time were poorly kept, have not been found, or were destroyed. The meager records do reveal to us that it was a turbulent and surprising time of Egyptian history. Traditionally the rulers had adjusted themselves to Horus, the god who in the legends had become lord of all Egypt. In any case, one ruler aligned himself with Seth, the lord of the desert and bearer of disarray. 1. Imhotep. The third dynasty started with King Djoser in 2670 BC, whose calmly rule took into account the structure of numerous landmarks. An everyday citizen by the name of Imhotep rose through the positions to turn into Djoser's most confided in council. Imhotep was probably the sharpest individual in mankind's history, and was both a specialist and an engineer. He authored a medical papyrus devoid of magical thinking that contained practical cures and surgeries, as well as described anatomies and ailments. He was the first designer to concoct utilizing support segments for building, and he planned the first since forever pyramid. The burial place of Djoser introduced the age of the pyramid manufacturers, otherwise called the Old Kingdom. In the ages to follow, Imhotep was venerated as a god of healing and wisdom.